Yo, Raider Nation, what is good, man? Tonight we got a great show lined up with me and Pharaoh. We're going to be breaking down the Las Vegas Raiders going against the Houston Texans. And let's be honest, a pivotal game for the Raiders to kind of get the train back on the tracks a little bit and to get back into the win column and really set their best foot forward and go in and pursuing a win. This is crucial for us this week, you guys. This is a team that we should beat, and we're going to discuss all things, man. We're going to give a second for the chat to pull up. We got Alfredo in the building. He says, salute. Salute to you, Alfredo. Look, man, last night we had a phenomenal show. Any super chats that come in, your question will be acknowledged, and all proceeds go straight to the show. If you see this chair back here, boy, it's a 1820 special, and my bag needs an upgrade. So anything that gets donated is going straight to the channel, man. But without further ado, we're going to have a great show tonight. We're just going to be breaking down the Houston Texans. So without further ado, man, welcome in my co-host, Pharaoh NFL. Pharaoh,
what up? What up? What's going on, man? Salute to the chat. Salute to the nation, man. Man, I'm glad to be back talking football. Yeah, salute to Digital Prez, man. I appreciate you pulling up too as well, man. Hey, we're done. The bye week is officially over. We got a game coming up, Houston Texans. We'll get into that in a little bit. We got some stuff to talk about, but yeah, man.
How was your bye week, by the way? Did it go by fast? Was it a struggle?
It was cool, like Sundays was kind of weird not having your football team to watch. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like a little bit of like looking up a few things, just figuring out life. What the meaning of life. That's what I was figuring.
You was questioning everything.
I was like a meme. I was definitely one of those memes where someone's in deep thought, like, Sundays. This is what
life. What is it? No, dude, I feel you, man. Really, overall, the bye week was kind of good for me. It was kind of a refresher, especially with the 1-4 start. It was kind of like a perfect time to just take a breather and to kind of get away and step away from Raiders football for just a second. The grind doesn't stop. We were back at it, even going live last night. But really, man, like we have our eyes set on the Houston Texans, which is honestly a pretty pivotal game, if we're being completely honest. The Raiders have put themselves in a situation where the backs are against the wall, and they've really got to come out here and put a Houston Texans team away. Really, Pharaoh, a team that the Raiders should actually go out here and beat.
Facts, 100%, man. I was looking at this team. I'm like, man, like looking at this roster, it's not a lot of big names on this roster. I mean, here and there you might recognize a couple of guys, but for the most part, it's a team where you could see probably picking in the top 10 by the end of the year. You know what I mean? It's just in my opinion. Digital Press, do the Kangaroos outnumber people in Australia still fair? Hey, man, I literally, it's funny because after the show, I was talking to Ray and I was like, hey, let me look this up real quick. I swear to God, everywhere I looked, it said that Kangaroos outnumbered.
Hey, he's got the receipts, bro.
National Geographic, man. Hey, they might be. Are they lying to people out here?
Conspiracy theories, boy. The internet's lying to us.
Facts, 100%, man.
Man, yeah, man. Had me weak. That was hilarious, and how confident
his reaction
OG was. OG was like, yes. He was so confident. It was
his reaction was priceless, bro. Like Avocazzi's reaction was priceless, and OG, like he was just like, yes, it is.
Yes. No. That was so good, bro. But yeah, man. Hey, 11 of you guys in the building, man. Smash that like button. We should have 11 likes, and let everybody know where you're at tonight, man. Share it to your social media. The more that we get into the building, the more we like. Look, the algorithm is very real. The more this show benefits you guys, the more interaction.
Let me go ahead and post a link too. I forgot to do that.
Go ahead and post a link. It is on my IG as well, and it's going to be on Pharaoh's IGs. Shout out to Digital Perez, bro. Digital Perez is doing his thing tonight. We're going to probably drop the link to him. Any moderators that are in the building, like a Daniel Kim, if you can you find Digital Perez's link to his channel and drop it down in the comments so people know where to find Digital Perez. So shout out to him, man. He's doing his thing, and shout out to Daniel Kim. Becoming a moderator last night. D Menace as well becoming a moderator. Shout out to all you guys. You guys are loyal to the program, and we appreciate it more than you know. So Pharaoh says Pharaoh might bring the Kangs to Egypt.
Hey, man. Hey, Prez, man. Come on, help us figure out a name for the show, man. You're the creative genius, man. You got to help us out. We'll figure that out. But, man, so should we start talking about the Texans game?
Yeah, let's just get straight into it. Let's not waste any time.
Yeah, man. Like I said, it's a bunch of no names on this team. Like I was just like looking at them. I'm like, bro, if and I was telling you this before the show. I'm like, if the Raiders lose this game, this is probably gonna be one of the most depressing losses in Raiders history. But that's how I feel, man. Like I feel like the Raiders should easily take care of this game. But that being said, there are guys that we should definitely keep an eye out on. And one of the guys, to me, in my opinion, is Dameon Pierce. The guy's rushed for 412 yards. He's a rookie running back. Dude's physical, kind of their own version of Josh Jacobs. 3 touchdowns, 4.8 yards per average. They kind of featured him within the last 2 games, and they finally got their win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 13-6. But that being said, that's literally their offense. Literally, it's like running the ball. But and it's not like they do it at a very good rate. But you see where I'm going with this. You know what I mean? Like, even though we've been good against the run, we still got to make sure that we do our jobs. And that's kind of where I'm at as far as with them offensively. Now they got some guys on the outside. Nico Collins, I believe we talked about
Brandon Cook.
leading the team in receiving. Brandon Cooks, guys, 6 out of 8 years of his career has gone over 1,000 yards. I'm not sure if he's he's not really having a good season so far, but we know that he's a deep threat, especially going against our secondary. I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of little concerned because we're kind of trying to figure out what we're gonna do come Sunday. But hopefully Avery will be ready. It's still early in the week, so we'll figure out what that secondary will look like before the game. But how do you feel about the game?
I feel pretty good when you're talking about the offensive side of the football for the Houston Texans. Yeah, the offense clearly runs through Dameon Pierce. I think it's crucial that number 5 ranked run defense that the Raiders carry coming into this football game. I think it's going to be crucial that they get in there and they stop the run on Dameon Pierce. And if you can really force this football team into 3rd and longs, look, they're 31st in the NFL with a 29.2 third down percentage completion rate. So early and often, you have got to get a hold of Dameon Pierce and get him down and create those 3rd and longs. You got to really put the football in David Mills' hands and force him to go out here and win the football game with his arm, something that I think that he truly struggles with. And the more that you can do that, the more these defensive ends can kind of pin their ears back. We all know about Max Crosby walking into that elite tier category. I think he has a really good matchup this weekend going up against a Titus Howard who has a 68.8 pass protection grade. Max Crosby has a real opportunity to go out here and have a huge game, maybe another 2 to 3 sack type of game, and really give this defense an opportunity to create turnovers, to take that step forward. Really, Farrell, I want to see the Raiders come out here collectively and start putting brick by brick. You have an identity in the run game. I want to see them consistently give the ball to Josh Jacobs and continue to develop the offense off of the run game. I want to see this run defense consistently show up week in and week out. And with a banged up secondary, look, let's see who is going to step up this week. You're going against the Brandon Cooks that you brought up. You brought up Nico Collins, a guy who has 272 receiving yards, has all the talent in the world to go up and get the football. Now, the Raiders have to find matchups when it comes to the secondary unit to really match up with these wide receivers, but I think that the Raiders do have an edge.
Facts, 100%. I think something to key on their defense is for sure Jerry Hughes, the guy leads his team in sacks with 4 sacks. They do a good job of moving around. They use them kind of on both sides. It's kind of interesting. They kind of like try to figure out who's the weak link on that offensive line. And let's be real, it's going to be Jermaine Illuminor compared to Colton Miller. So that's another matchup that we got to look at. But they do got a young secondary. Derek Stingley is a guy that, he was highly drafted, you know what I mean? He was, but he hasn't really played too well, you know what I mean? So, man, should we get into matchups? It's a little too early to get into matchups, but like, I'm circling that guy because I'm like, you're a rookie.
No, we're gonna get there because somebody
I mean,
in the
I'm like,
silver and black is about to have a big
interesting.
game.
All right. But yeah, man, I'm not really too. And we talked about this before the show. We're like, hey, man, like this is not gonna be like a high scoring affair. I think that I was kind of surprised to see that their defense is pretty much high overall, not highly ranked, but pass defense is pretty solid. Their red zone defense is pretty solid. Their scoring defense, they're like literally forcing teams 19.8 per game, which is under 20 a game, so which is kind of impressive. Like if you look at some of the games that they played, appreciate you, Daniel. But if you look at like their games, there's not really been any high scoring games except for against when they played the Chargers. But for the most part, everything has been low scoring games. So I'm thinking maybe, I think the Raiders can go in here and they can blow this team out. It's a really good chance they could blow this team out. Because if you look at like like they played the Jaguars, they've played I know they played
The Chargers, the Colts,
the
the
Chargers, the
Bears.
Colts, the Bears, and you know what I mean? Like these are teams that like a lot of those teams that we've mentioned offensively, they've struggled. You
Right.
know what I mean? Other than like you say, the Chargers, look at the Bears. We've seen the Bears on like primetime games, and they're terrible on offense. Jaguars, they beat the Chargers. The Jaguars, their only game that they've won was 13-6. So you could just tell like this team is not a team that, we shouldn't overlook, but we should definitely win. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think that we should overlook them. These are the games that you can kind of get sucked into a game, and it can kind of be a little bit of a trap. Their biggest defeat comes by 10 points. You know that's a crucial feat. I mean, they've played the Chargers, they've played the Broncos, and those are teams respectively on paper that they probably felt the same way going into the Houston Texans game, that they should go on there and kind of put some points up on them. And in that Chargers game, they really rallied and really kind of took it to the Chargers. So this is a team that's coming into Allegiant Stadium, and they're not just gonna bend over. You know, this is gonna be a game that the Raiders have to put that system in place. We alluded to it a little bit earlier by stacking it brick by brick. I want to see the Raiders go against a team that they're supposed to win and put 4 quarters together. Don't go out here and play to the level of the Texans. That's something that we've seen the Raiders do in times past, and I want to see us be able to turn that corner. Right, even at a 1-4 stretch right now, I want to see us be able to turn the corner against teams that we are better than, and not to play down to their level.
facts. Let's be honest, like this is a Raiders team that needs to prove that they can finish, meaning they need to finish in the red zone. They need to score touchdowns. Right now, we're the we're one of the worst teams offensively and defensively, so we need to figure that out. But we're playing a team, even though we're saying that this is a team that we can take care of. They're a bend but don't break defense. So I feel like we can move the ball against this team, but when they get to that red zone, they're actually one of the best teams in the red zone. I believe their red zone defense is one of the tops in the league. So we definitely have to like see how that turns out in the game. We got to keep an eye on that. Because if it's a low scoring game, close game, I think that's when you can give a team like the Texans, you're giving them a chance. I think what we need to start off strong and put the game early. And hey, man, a secret recipe so far this year that's been working is give the ball to Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, and I think if the Raiders can kind of do what they've done this year and come out and put points up early on this team, if you can force a team like the Texans in a 17-point hole or a 20-point lead, you've got to like your chances, right? Just with their ability, the lack of ability to pass and stretch the football down the football field. Let's not let this be one of those games that the Raiders go out here and get torched in the secondary, right? What?
I'm cracking up, man. Like the chat over here. Alfredo says 2 guys, 1 shield podcast.
Oh,
Digital
geez.
Press says 2 Raiders, 1 torch. Daniel Kim says Raiders blackout with Raider Ray and Farrah NFL, or about the Shield with Raider Ray and Farrah.
Okay.
Okay. We're gonna write this down. I actually I got some from yesterday, so I'm gonna make sure I take some of these down.
Where does the Raiders paradigm line up in this?
Raiders paradigm. I think that's probably in the lead. I like things with meaning. You know what I mean? Like you could when someone hears it, when you hear a name, you're like, what does that mean? And you start breaking that down. I feel like that's dope to me. So
Mm-hmm.
it's up there for sure. It's up there. Well, and what we'll do is that we'll take like the probably best 2, 3, and then we'll
And we'll
have
make
the
a
nation
poll.
just decide. Yeah, we'll make a poll and have y'all decide because that was kind of our thing from to begin with. We'll let everybody that comes out and support us. We want them to pick the name because we appreciate the support.
I like it, Daniel Kim. We need to go out there big like we did against KC and step on their throats and keep it there. Facts.
Yeah,
I want to see us put a lead on a team and then go put them away.
yeah.
Instead of letting them hang around there, float around, get some easy go-ahead scores. Let's see the Raiders go up 20 and then come into the second half and actually go out there and finish a football team for once, especially a team that you should be beating on paper. I think it would be huge for the morale of the Raiders locker room moving forward, especially in games like the Saints and the Colts and the Jags. These upcoming games where let's be honest, we're going to take this approach one game at a time over here. But the Raiders match up pretty favorably with these teams, so you have to see the Raiders take a step forward in putting together 4 quarters. that Tampa 2 defense, man, they really run this bend and don't break. They do have a young secondary that has capabilities. Desmond King in the slot, he's allowing a 57% passer rating, which ranks third in the NFL. So a guy like Hunter Renfrow, not to get in matchups yet, but they've got a young secondary out here that can line up and match up pretty well with the Raiders' wide receivers now. As I say that, I want to be a little bit careful because we've got a good matchup breakdown, and I think that the Raiders, this could be a game where Derek Carr comes out here and makes a real statement.
Facts, man. And another thing too is that the Texans also are coming out of a bye week too. So this is
Yep.
another reason why you shouldn't overlook your opponent. Any given Sunday could happen, especially if an opponent is coming into the game that has as much time as we've had to game plan. So they've looked at our weaknesses. They've looked at like where we struggled at. Because we're not a perfect team. So that's why like it's a game where we can't overlook the Texans. Even though I'm telling you guys, like, hey man, this is a game where I could easily see a blowout. But if it's close, or if we allow Dameon Pierce to go wild because they're gonna feature him, it's gonna be an issue. It's gonna be an issue, and it could, it could be a loss. But I'm not saying we're gonna lose, man. If we lose this game, I'm shaving my head. No, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say something like that because I already know y'all gonna bring that up.
Yeah, and they're
You're
gonna
gonna be like,
hold you to it too.
shave your head.
How do you think that this Raiders defense actually matches up against this offense? Like, is there? I guess we can kind of head and go. Let's defensively go into this, and we can talk about matchups specifically, and then we can kind of transition over into offensive matchups. But defensively as a whole, how do you feel about this unit going in here against the Texans, and what are your kind of expectations for the Raiders?
I mean, as far as where they match up, like, do we want to talk about the matchups between the Texans and the Raiders? I mean, I feel like, look, if you have a starting rookie, he's your number one corner, Derek Stingley, bro, you gotta think Devontae Adams. He's been watching. He's a self-motivated player. This dude is the one of the best, if not the best receiver in the game, and he's gonna find every little thing to motivate him. You don't think that he's heard everything about? You don't think you seen how pissed he was? You seen how mad he was when he finished the game the way he did against the KC Chiefs? Like, he literally dropped the ball. He ran into Hunter Renfrow. It's embarrassing. You know what I mean? You're one of the best receivers on prime time, and you're the reason that literally, hey, it's been like over a week since the game, and we kind of figured out like, hey, Devontae Adams lost the game from us at the end. At the end, I don't want to put everything on him, but he did like run the wrong route. He did drop the ball on third down, which led to that fourth down play. So you got to think that Devontae Adams matched up with Derek Stingley. I think he's going to give him a rude awakening, in my opinion. I think
I
he's just
think we're going to see a pretty motivated Devontae Adams coming into
for
this game,
sure.
and a Desmond King lined up against a guy who really has to prove it. You know what I mean? You can make the argument that in this offseason with contracts like Darren Waller, Chandler Jones, Hunter Renfrow has to be in there in the discussion over the course of the first 5 weeks. That has been a little bit disappointing. Honestly, you can't kind of blame him for the concussion aspect. That's a part of the game, and injuries do happen. But the fumble issues, that's been an issue over the course of his career, and the fact that he's getting paid upwards of $15 million. We really need Hunter Renfrow to take advantage of these matchups. I know Desmond King is among the best slot DBs in the NFL, but a week like this is one of those where Hunter Renfrow has to take that step forward and start to get back into the offense and start to become a viable weapon for Derek Carr again.
Yeah, 100%. I think Renfrow needs to step up, especially because we don't know if Waller is going to play this week. We don't know what his status is and if he's going to be 100%, even if he does play. So a guy like Hunter Renfrow, who hasn't really played well so far in this NFL season, you know what I mean? I just it's like he needs to step up. He needs to step up without a doubt. And the fact that like the first two games where he has 3 fumbles, and we can go into like the other seasons where he's had even more fumbles. It's almost similar to Derek Carr. He's like a fumble machine, at the wide receiver position. So he needs to step up. I think McDaniels needs to do a good job of featuring him too as well. Because right now they're trying to figure out their way. They're like literally the Raiders. You can see we're watching every Sunday. They're trying to figure out this offense, and it sounds crazy because you got all this talent, but they're trying to figure out what works, who's learning, who's on point right now. Josh Jacobs is that guy. We need to keep feeding him the ball, and then obviously I think what we did last game against the Chiefs. I like what we did. I felt like giving the ball to Josh Jacobs and then using play action and taking deep shots and getting getting Devontae Adams involved, and I bet you if Waller would have played, it looked like he probably would have had a big game against the Chiefs. If you think about it, just the way Josh Jacobs was running the ball and the fact that play action game would have worked against the Chiefs linebacker. Not to go off topic, but that's going to be a guy that we don't know if he's going to be available this game against the Texans, and that's why Renfro needs to step up. So it's going to be a big matchup, but it's going to be a tough matchup, like you said, with Desmond King.
Yeah, I think that this game, like, it is a game that you alluded to earlier that you want to see the Raiders go out there and dominate. But this, to me, dude, it really feels like one of those 27-20 type of games, or a 24-17 type of game. I could see both sides. Josh Jacobs, I'd imagine, is going to get 20 plus run carries, especially going against the 30th ranked run defense in the National Football League, which are the Texans. I mean, what better way to go into a football game and having your identity found through the run game and going against a Texans defense who's struggling to stop the run. I think like Josh Jacobs can really carry the Raiders to a victory here. And I really think that the team that is most efficient on third downs, red zone percentage, being able to control the time of possession, they're going to give their offense the ability to really control this football game. And to me, man, I think this game is won in the trenches, both offensively and defensively. I think Josh Jacobs has to get going, and then you have to use the play action. I think Derek Carr really benefits you getting play action, getting his feet moving outside of the pocket, and taking those shots downfield. And if Josh Jacobs can get going early and often, I think it's going to bode really well for the wide receivers, and especially for me personally, Farrell. I think a guy like Mac Hollins. I think there's going to be a lot of attention going to Devontae and Hunter Renfrow, especially if Darren Waller's a no-go.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to the red zone, I could see Mac Hollins being one of those guys that has a sneaky good game as well.
And I think the fact that, they're a bend but don't break defense, I feel like if they can get that run game going and they can start using that play action, once they hit that 20-yard line, start taking shots at that red zone. Because they've proven hey, I'm not a defensive coordinator, I'm not an offensive coordinator, but like, hey, if they're one of the best teams in the red zone, you know what I mean? They're one of the best teams as far as red zone defense. Then we need to start taking shots a little bit before we get to that, 15, 10-yard, you know what I mean? Because we need some room to and we got the players, man. We got Devontae, we got Renfro, we got, hopefully Waller could play this game. But if not, a guy like you said, Mac Hollins needs to step up. But I'm not, bro. And I'm talking like this. We're trying to be realistic with y'all. But all this being said, the Texans is terrible, man. They're just
not a good football team.
They're just not good, man. They're not a talented football team. You know what I mean? It's just they don't got
their
a lot of
1-3-1 record is a lot different picture than the Raiders 1-4.
Let me read out their scores. Let's just come on. Let me just read out their scores from the let's see here.
Van City says, yo, what's good, guys? What's going on, Van City? I hope all is well, my brother. Thank you for pulling up and spending the night with us. We're talking all things Texans, man. It's a big game we've got lined up this Sunday, and I'm really excited to see the silver and black hit the field again. You got that pulled up?
Yep, I got it pulled up. So look, so the first game against the Colts, they tied them 20-20. We've seen the Colts play. The Colts have been in my opinion, they've been a disappointment. I know the record doesn't really reflect it as much, but just watching them play, they don't seem like as good as a team as they were last year during the regular season. And then you got the Denver Broncos. Literally, they lost against the Broncos 9-16. 9-16. And then they lose against the Chicago Bears 20-23. And come on, we've if anybody's seen Chicago Bears play lately, they're not a good football team. It's just let's keep it real. And then the Chargers handled business by scoring 34. They won 34-24. And obviously their last game, like we talked about earlier, they won 13-16 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's just like it's just one of those teams where, hey, salute to Dirty Low, man. Appreciate you pulling up,
Dirty.
And salute to everybody that's pulled up. But
there's 27 of you, man. Go smash that like button. Go subscribe to Pharaoh NFL. We appreciate each and every single one of you guys for pulling up to the show tonight. Any and all super chats are going to go straight to the show. So we thank you greatly for all of that. Van City says we need to fix this defense if we're going to have any chance at all to do something this season. And it brings us up to a really good point, especially coming off the bye week, going 1-4. And look, we've got you alluded to, you told me before the show, well, we've got like the 32nd ranked red zone defense in the National Football League.
82.4%.
But yeah, but hear me out. I really do believe that Patrick Graham is the type of coach that he's not going to be like a Paul Gunther. I don't necessarily think he's going to be like a Gus Bradley. Patrick Graham to me is a coach who is going to look in the mirror, take a long look at this defense, and at least attempt to change and adjust things and give opposing offenses at least a few different looks to get the Raiders in a better situation to find more success. Now do you think that Patrick Graham is that kind of coach? And if so, do you think that he could kind of get this Raiders red zone defense turned around a bit? Not to be in the top of the league, but can he make a few slight adjustments to get the Raiders back in a better position than what they're in currently?
See, look, with Patrick Graham, I think what he's going to do, he's going to try to take away your strength, and he did that. He tried to do that with Kelsey. Obviously, Kelsey getting 4 touchdowns, that's just terrible.
Right.
But a salute egalitarian. But Kelsey did finish with 27 yards, and they were doubling him most of the game. So I think what they're gonna do. I think they're gonna try to take away that run game. They're gonna try to take away Dameon Pierce. The reason why they beat the Jaguars, the reason why he's like literally one of their only bright spots on offense. I feel like they're going to take away that part of it. But what has me concerned, the fact that we have injuries in the secondary, and then you got proven vets like Brandon Cooks, double move. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, Nico Collins is a guy that's been productive for them so far in this young season. So I'm just kind of worried about the secondary and their health. And let's be honest, our weakness on our defense has been the middle of that part of that defense. You know what I mean? The middle of the part of the field. So they're going to be game planning as well. They're going to see that as well. So I'm curious to see how the Raiders defense is able to and it's not like we're going against a juggernaut. So It's not like we're going against, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady in their prime. You know what I mean? It's not one of those types of deal, but they've had the same amount of time to game plan against us, to have more than enough time to come up with a good plan to beat us. Now, can they execute it? We'll see on Sunday. You know what I mean? But I just feel like we do have weaknesses in our defense, and our linebackers have struggled so far in pass defense this year.
No,
But I think yeah, go ahead.
No, I do. I agree with you 100% because I just think that this is a game where the Raiders defense cannot play to the Texans talent level, because to me, even though the Raiders defense isn't that great when it comes to red zone efficiency, when you're talking about run defense being top 5 in the league, that's something to hang your hat on. When it comes to pass defense, they actually rank among the top 10 in the National Football League, if I'm not mistaken. So you've got to take these things and apply them. You've got 7 sacks on the season. I believe 6 of them or 7, all 7 of them are coming from Max Crosby. You've really got to pin your ears back. Chandler Jones has a tough matchup this week going against a Laramie Tunsil. Laramie is a pretty elite left tackle in the National Football League. So I am looking at Max Crosby to kind of edge it out. But look, let's see if this defense can step up, especially with injuries that they're dealing with in the secondary unit. Can a guy like Anthony Averett, who we haven't seen, get some playing time? Can he come in and play an efficient role? Is he in good shape? And if it's just a matter, was it a hand issue that he was dealing with?
With
Anthony Averett?
Anthony Averett, I believe. Let's see.
Yeah, check it out. I believe it was a hand injury, and if it was a simple hand injury, then you got to think that he's probably in good condition. So if that hand is healed up, you could probably see Anthony Averett play the course of the entire game.
It was a broken thumb. It was a broken thumb.
Okay, so see, moving forward, that's a good thing, and getting Anthony Averett back in the lineup, I think it bodes well for the Raiders. I think he's going to have a tough matchup this week for his welcome back party. But really, you guys, the Texans aren't a team that should put fear in the Raiders at all. This is a team that I want to see Josh McDaniels come out with a new swagger. I want to see Josh McDaniels call the best game of his life. I want to see him on the sideline, passionate, fired up to be in Allegiant Stadium in front of Raider Nation, in front of the Black Hole, and really come out here and put 4 quarters together. I want to see Patrick Graham and this coaching staff come together, make halftime adjustments, get creative. But not only do I want to see the coaches have an aspect to that, I want to see the players execute the plays that are being called. That's a big aspect of it, because you're looking at a few situations in this season to where Josh McDaniels' play calling has been criticized. But if these players execute at a high level, you can almost look at it as it's a situation where we're actually praising the plays and the play calling of a Josh McDaniels. So I want to see this coaching staff and these players work hand in hand, simplify things, take things out of the playbook that weren't necessarily working, stick to what you do well, and build upon that. So me personally, Farrell, I want to see Josh McDaniels come in here and coach one heck of a football game.
Facts, 100%. And make sure to hit the like button. The algorithm is very real, so we really appreciate everybody that's pulling up. We got 28 in the building. I see like 25 likes. Let's get 3 more likes, man. Let's get it to 28, man. If we can get to 30, that'd be amazing too. So make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe both our channels, because we do a weekly show where we switch off, and so make sure to subscribe to both our channels. But I got a stat here. I have a very interesting stat that kind of illustrates our defense and how they've been struggling against in the middle of the part of that defense. And it's Football Outsiders says the Raiders defense against passes over the middle are 71 out of 83, 812 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an 80.7% completion rate, 9.2 yards per attempt. That's not a good
That's
stat,
not good.
bro.
No.
It's not a good stat. So that literally, best believe, Lovie Smith and their coaching staff they're looking at game film. They're like, oh, okay, we know what we need to do. Guys like OJ Howard on the Texans. I don't know if he's been productive this year for them, but they got some tight ends. They're going to try to
and they're going to
utilize.
they just drafted a tight end too that they're getting back this game who is
I
on
think
the IR.
I think he was like the highest rated tight end coming out.
Yep.
I think. So,
they're going to try to get him involved, but we'll see how that goes. I to be honest with you, as long as we can control the line of scrimmage and stop the run game, it limits their play calling when it comes to play action. And if you can limit the amount of play action that they actually run this game, it bodes well for the Raiders. Really, I want to see Mills back there in shotgun on 3rd and longs and really having to make contested throws, playing a pretty heavy man coverage scheme. We got my dad actually made a comment here. Let Crosby go. Let's go Raiders. Raider Ray.
Hey, salute to Ray's pops, man. I appreciate you coming through, man. Hey, man, appreciate it.
It's a fact, man. Max Crosby has to get going. He's stepping into that territory where he's walking into that elite level, right? And to be honest, I think he's kind of kicked the door down this season of being elite. So games like this is where you have to see Max Crosby emerge. This is where you have to see him go up against lesser competition and really take over the game and give your defense opportunities to go out there and create turnovers. I think Max Crosby has a real opportunity to be at least in the running this year for Defensive Player of the Year.
Man, he's taken that next step, and that next step and we're talking about this before the show, man. He's an elite player, man. Best player in our defense, hands down. One of the best players at the position, and like you said, he has a good chance if he continues to. I think if he continues this where he's going right now with the way he's playing it so far this season, he has a good chance of winning that Defensive Player of the Year. What's going to help his cause is if the Raiders start winning games, and obviously if he's playing well and we start winning games, then you gotta look at Max. You got to consider him as Defensive Player of the Year, man.
Okay, so let me bring up a situation for you. Say the Raiders go out here and lose to the Texans. If you're the Raiders and right now you're sitting at the number 2 overall pick, if the draft was today, if you go out and you lose to the team against the Texans and you go 1-5, you have to imagine that the things in the locker room are going to start to set in. You could kind of get that sense of feeling of how frustrated this team was against the Kansas City Chiefs with how close they were. They could almost taste that victory and it just fell through their fingertips. What happens if the Raiders go out here, drop a game to the Texans, go 1-5? Do you think a part of this regime is looking forward to the draft, or do you think that there's still one game at a time?
Man, to be honest with you, Mark Davis hired Josh McDaniels and Dave Z to win. I mean, we've been giving out all these contracts, these big contracts, these extensions, and Mark Davis has been signing off like, yep, go ahead and do it, because he wants to win. He wants to win in this new market in Las Vegas. I just don't see how they can just do that. I mean, I could see it makes sense. Like, okay, strategically speaking, like, hey, okay, we're out of it. Then we might as well start trading some of these some guys that are literally like Josh Jacobs. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. Obviously, he's playing well, but what I'm saying is that like it makes sense. But then at the same time, like You know what I mean? Josh McDaniels came here to win at the end of the day. So I don't think they give up that easily, in my opinion.
So when it comes to scheme fit right now, obviously it's been reported today that the Raiders are involved in the trade deadline market and also putting up players like a Cleveland Farrell and a Jonathan Abram. Now, do you think that these are two players that you could see the Raiders actually moving on from? And if so, what are maybe some targets? You don't have to necessarily give me names, but maybe positions on the Raiders unit offensively, defensively that you could see them go out there and target and address to kind of, especially if they get a win by the over the Houston Texans and you're kind of creating momentum and you're like, okay, what can we do to this roster to add talent to it? And maybe at some positions that don't necessarily take a long time to develop. Maybe you go get a solid man coverage corner. Maybe you go get linebacker help who is kind of like a plug and play. What is your opinion on that?
I think the positions that come to mind are corner, D tackle, and linebacker. A coverage linebacker, a guy that could hold his own in coverage. He doesn't have to be elite, but got to be better than what we have right now because we have a lot of run stuffers, guys that are undersized, that are not really good against the pass. Guys like Divine Diablo. You're thinking like, hey, you're an undersized guy, like, but he's better against a run than he is against the pass. And I remember you pointed out earlier in the season, like a lot of people were kind of saying, they were overlooking how bad he was against the pass because Corey Littleton was such a failed free agent signing, so people kind of overlooked him. And it's funny. A guy that I heard that is linked to the Raiders is Morrow.
I know Nicholas Morrow. I've seen that. That would be a
So,
really good fit.
and he's playing well for the Bears
He
too.
is. And I don't think it's going to take much to get him either.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at that. I'm sure that he wouldn't either because he's familiar with the locker room. He's familiar with the guys. So it'll be a good culture fit. You know what I mean? It'll be an easy fit for him to come back. Obviously, it's going to be a brand new defense for him, but it's up to Patrick Graham to figure out. But yeah, like I said, D tackle, cornerback, those are the other two positions. I mean, we've kind of been pounding the table like, hey, D tackle, we need a D tackle. So I don't know if they're going to address that, but I think Jonathan Abram makes more sense that he gets traded because he has more value compared to Farrell because Farrell barely plays. Like
No,
what
and
team?
I thought it was interesting too that it was specifically Cleveland Farrell and Jonathan Abram because you've seen them move on from those old draft picks. But what I thought was also interesting is that they didn't pick up the fifth-year option on Josh Jacobs. However, Josh's name is not involved in that trade mix. Obviously, he's playing lights out right now. But does it give you an opportunity that if you go and move on from these 2 first-round draft picks, yeah, you've seen that. You go move on from these 2 first-round draft picks, and maybe you can go ahead and rally and kind of keep a Josh Jacobs.
Put that comment up there. It's hilarious.
The pastor and the mummy boy. Book it. Book it. I love it, Raider Gabe.
Oh man, Raider Gabe, man, that was the comment of the night. Shout out to the panel. Keep it great with you, gents. The pastor and the mummy.
When me and OG were going, they were saying, "Hey, this show needs to be called The Pastor and the Pirate." I was like, "All right,
I
yeah."
guess y'all know what I'm gonna dress up in Halloween, man. That's that. No, I'm playing, but that's hilarious. That's funny. But yeah, man. Hey, man. At first, because I know yesterday on yesterday when you went live, you kind of asked like, do you think that the Raiders can make a move? And now I'm kind of like, the more I'm hearing these rumors, the more I'm kind of like, interesting. But the thing is that it's kind of hard to predict what this regime is going to do because I know they've been aggressive as far as signing players, but as far as the trade market, as far as rumors, a lot of the rumors that if you remember during the offseason, a lot of them were not true.
Right.
You know what I mean? You get what I'm trying to say? Because they
Yeah.
don't know. All they're doing is connecting the dots. Like, oh, the Raiders need a cornerback. Oh, the Raiders need a linebacker. Or the Raiders need a wide receiver. Because think about it. Chandler Jones caught us off guard. Devontae Adams caught us off guard. I mean, a lot of people connected Devontae Adams, but let's be real. When free agency started, we did not expect Devontae Adams to come to the Raiders. It was kind of one of those random moves we didn't expect. So I think the Raiders do a really good job, especially this regime of like not really showing their hand. So we'll
And
see.
unless that these rumors have really came out of the Raiders headquarters alone, I really can't trust it because Dave Ziegler, Champ Kelly, Josh McDaniels, this organization does a really good raps to keeping quiet what they're doing behind the
Yeah.
scenes. So if they're putting that out there, maybe this is kind of a smoke and mirrors type of thing, maybe just to see what a team would call and be willing to give up. And really, if it's draft picks, I don't even know necessarily that you're going to get the compensation that you're wanting for either of the guys. So unless it's a player for player type of deal, I'm kind of out of it. You know, I
Yeah.
think you ride with what you got if it's settling for less.
You remember like how many times did we hear Stephon Gilmore was coming to the Raiders? How many times did we hear the Honey Badger was coming to the Raiders? You know what I mean? Like, and it didn't happen. So it was just kind of like, all right, it seems like a lot of people are literally trying to connect the dots and trying to make a educated guess. But at the end of the day, they're just guessing. There's no real merit to the rumors, to all these reports, because like I said, man, like it seems like they really do a good job compared to previous regimes. It's almost like in previous regimes, there was some guy in the building just calling Adam Schefter,
Right.
whoever.
Let them know what we're doing.
Man, exactly. And that hurt us too with John Gruden. Remember, John Gruden literally, like, everybody knew that who he wanted, and it kind of helped them. It hurt them in the draft when they wanted to trade down.
Right.
Like, for example, I bet you they didn't want I bet they didn't want to draft Cleveland Farrell at number 4,
He
but they
showed
had
his
no choice.
hands. John Gruden didn't care. He was like, "Look, this is what I'm going to do. This is the guy I want. I'm going to go get it, regardless of where you have him mocked, regardless of where you have him ranked in the draft. This is the guy I want, and I'm going to go get it."
And they could have traded this, if you want to be honest, they could have traded down a little bit for Ruggs, because a lot of people were reporting that he was the 3rd best receiver.
I was a guy who was big on CeeDee Lamb. You know, coming out, CeeDee Lamb was involved in that mix with
Yeah,
Henry Ruggs, and
yeah,
that was my guy that I had
yeah,
circled. I was like, "Oh," and we had the
yeah,
opportunity to grab him, but they went with
yeah.
Henry Ruggs.
But to be fair though, I was really happy with, and it's sad to talk about this, but I was really happy with his development in that
Oh, I
second
was too.
year. I was kind of seeing his ceiling. I was like, oh my God, 4.2 speed, 45-inch vertical.
And now he's putting it together. Like he's starting to develop a route
Oh
concept.
my God. And the
That's
chemistry
what we're
with him
getting at
Carr was
to.
just, I was just like, oh wow, this
And
is,
then if you remember that Chiefs game where the Raiders actually went out there and won, his ability to go up there and get the football. He
man.
climbed the ladder and goes up there and plucks the ball out of the air and comes down with a huge contested catch. And I'm like, okay, like Henry Ruggs is developing. Like he's getting better. It's unfortunate that whole situation happened, but no, I
Right.
really do. I do expect the Raiders to make some type of move. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big name. I know we're linked to the Commanders' defensive back. Who knows how true those rumors are? But carrying a 15.5 million salary hit next season for a 29-year-old defensive back who's going to be 30 by the time you have to pay him $15 million. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of that move, if I'm being honest. I think you can go out there and address a man coverage corner that's maybe stashed away, maybe a Bryce Hall that's on the Jets. There's rumors that he wants out, losing his spot to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. It's just I think that there's ways to maneuver around that and not have to give up so much compensation and put a ton of cap salary towards that position. Oh,
Oh man.
Avakazi. Dude, Avakazi, that video is going to be saved to my lifetime. Like I'm keeping that for life. That was so good. Salute guys, had a really nice walk with my mother today. Not a kangaroo in sight. Well, I'm glad to know that they don't outnumber the Australian population 2 to
Hey
1.
man, I googled it. I googled
He
it,
did.
and
Hey, Avakazi, after the show, he sent me screenshots, and
we
sure
need we
enough,
need to, we need to talk about this Avocado, because this, I googled it, and
either
I
you don't
literally,
know your country or Google's out here messing with us because they said it's 2 to 1 kangaroo ratio. Like
yeah,
kangaroos got your number.
yeah, that was hilarious. That was hilarious.
Avakazi. He said the ignorance of you guys. I'm very offended. Let's not bring the offended stuff over here. Let's not be offended.
Hey man, I'm not trying to offend nobody. My bad if
It's
you
all
offended, but
love, boy.
for real. Raiders 805 says Ruggs would have been a bigger star than Lamb.
Woo.
Man, I don't. Man, all I know is just when I saw after year 1, I was kind of like, damn, we should have got Lamb. Like, come on, bro. Like, I just seen Lamb more of a number 1 receiver. But then at year 2, when I seen the potential. I seen this. I kind of seen like, okay, this dude Ruggs, he didn't even perfect. Like, he was getting better, and you could see like, damn, like if he gets better as a route runner, like he didn't even perfect that yet. You know what I mean? Like like, man, I don't even want to talk about it because
I
Ruggs
think
is just
people
such
feared
a
that he had like that John Ross aspect to his game where he's got this burner type of speed, but is he going to develop over the course of time? And that was the gamble. You could say whatever you want about that regime, about the John Gruden era, uh, but they did hit on a few picks. You know what I mean? The Max Crosbys, the Hunter Renfros. They really did find some pieces that are pretty foundational to the Raiders organization. Now they did miss, especially when it came to the first round. That's probably arguably the worst first round selections that I've ever seen. Just how they've panned out. But when it came to late in the draft, though, I thought overall the Raiders did an okay job of going out there and finding talent. Finding a Nate Hobbs late in the draft like that, coming from ironically a Lovie Smith defense that we're playing against this weekend.
yeah,
They have a
yeah,
lot of familiarity.
hmm
Unfortunately, that Nate Hobbs isn't going to be able to compete in that football game.
yeah.
Um, but Lovie Smith is a very well respected coach, and I can tell that this Texans team is a team that's just going to fold. I mean, they love their head coach. That's a fact, and so I don't think that this game, as much as it is on paper very easy, I think that the Raiders are actually in for a pretty tough game.
I hear you. And like I went over the scores of the games, like literally the biggest difference in the score was against the Chargers, and it was a 10-point loss. And that was a game that they fought to come back in too. And all their other games literally had a game where the first game of the season was a tie. They lost against the Bears. But you hear that I'm kind of a lot of the teams that they played, they're not really that good either. You know what I mean?
No,
These are teams that we're going to be playing. Like at least one of the teams, that Jaguars are one of the teams that we're going to be playing, and they beat them 13-6. So it's kind of like, I like, I don't want to just come in there and get a little too cocky because the Raiders have disappointed me. Because I remember when I said they were supposed to blow out the Cardinals, which they should have, and they were halfway there, 20-0 at halftime, but they didn't finish. So in my opinion, this is going to be a game they have to start off strong and go for the kill, Mamba mentality, like literally go for the kill. Like, don't give this team any hope at all. You know what I mean? And I think the Raiders have the ability to do that. We just haven't seen it yet. So, but it's definitely a winnable game. And we talked about how like they're entering a stretch of games where they can possibly win. But each game is going to have their own different challenges. And I keep saying it, any given Sunday is a real thing. So hopefully, and that's on, I'll say, yeah, the players have to take responsibility of being ready, but but also the coaching staff have to do a really good job of keeping these players focused and keeping these players playing, like, being motivated and ready to play, man. Because at the end of the day, like, they can't overlook anybody. Their room for error is very small, and that's because they've lost some winnable games early on in the season, and now they have a chance to rectify that, with this 6-game stretch where they're going to play some winnable games. But at the end of the day, like, nothing is given. You have to earn it.
when you're talking about almost the lack of execution based off of the specifically offensive side of the football, let's just kind of focus on Josh McDaniels for a minute. And we all know that the locker room comes out and talks about how detail oriented Josh McDaniels is. And we've heard Derek Carr come out and also Devontae Adams and said, hey, certain people at practice need to step up. Do you think that the lack of details is actually a player issue and not necessarily a coaching issue? That is the entire offense buying into practice habits, doing the small details every single day, or do they believe that they have a good football team and a lot of these guys have just kind of rolled into Sunday and think that just by showing up that that's going to be enough to go out there and win a football game?
I think part of the struggles this season has been adjusting to Josh McDaniels and their coaching staff, because this is a team that just came off winning 10 games, and now they have a new system, new coaching staff, new voices, and they're adjusting to that. And but when you hear guys like, you know, Derek Carr talk about Josh McDaniels, saying that he's like this one of the smartest coaches he's ever been around, you know what I mean? Like, and he puts a lot of respect on John Gruden's name as well. But he says, like, this guy, like, he gets it, he knows it. And it seems like from what Derek Carr, it's hard to hear. For me, it's kind of hard for me to like hear play. I like to hear what other players outside of the teams have to say, just because they don't have any
Exactly.
conflict of interest. But at the end of the day, like, you could hear Josh McDaniels doesn't seem like a guy, like he was not the same guy that he was in Denver. I feel like he learned from his mistakes. But he has to prove that, man. And I thought there was a step in the right direction last game. Every game we gotten better, and the game against the Chiefs, I felt like we should have won that game. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, don't get it done. But hey, look, if Devontae Adams caught the ball, game over.
And that's
Game
what I'm
over.
talking about. It's just to me
Game
like
over.
we do point the finger at Josh McDaniels respectively so because there has been some, there's been some decisions that have been made that have been, a little up in the air on if that was what was best for the football team at that given time. But I do think that a lot of it has been execution on the player's part. And you could say it's the elaborate concepts that Josh McDaniels runs on offense. At the end of the day, you've been preaching this whole offseason that you've got these really smart football players who have bought into the playbook and the offensive scheme. At some point, these guys on the offensive side of the football, the Hunter Renfrows, Devontae's, Derek, Darren, and really you could arguably say that the one who's really emerged has been Josh Jacobs, and everybody else has almost has to play catch up. I just feel like the lack of details is really why the Raiders are sitting at 1-4. They have a real opportunity to honestly, Farrell, be a 4-1 football team, maybe a 3-2 football team. I'll give them the first loss, but every single other game they had opportunities. They even had opportunities in the Chargers game. We had the ball with minutes remaining on the clock in every single one of our games. I mean, it's came down to that close, and I just think once the Raiders can find a way to be efficient and actually execute the plays that are actually being called, those are going to start to transition into wins.
Facts. And yeah, you can make a case that it is execution because at the end of the day, like you just said, they've been in every game. And when you play in close games, execution is literally
That
like
it's
it has to
everything.
be on point.
It's
Like
everything.
you know what I mean? Like play calling has to be on point, but then at the end of the day, like the players got to go out there. Like, look, a perfect example is like we could just look at last game. Like, look at the end of the game. Look how it ended. Our best player, failed to get his feet in bounds, and then he runs into Hunter Renfro. It's just that how to get. It's just how to this. It is what it is at the end of the day. So
Carlos says execution, yes, and I think it's 100% fact. It's all into the chemistry
and
factor.
that takes time. It
It
takes
does,
time, man.
and
It
that's
takes
the one
time.
thing that Raider Nation doesn't want to hear is that it's going to
Yeah,
take
they
time.
don't want
But
to hear that.
it's the fact of the matter. I mean, it's what happens when a first-year head coach. We talked about it's not a rebuild, it's a retooling, but that's a cute way of saying that you may have not have lost a ton of talent, right? And you may have added to the roster, but the fact of the matter is you're coming in with one of the most complex offensive schemes in the National Football League, and Josh McDaniels. And that's no walk in the park. That's not just something that comes overnight. You have a new defense installed. You're going from a 4-3 to really a nickel formation, a 3-4 front a lot of the times, to really hone in and stop that run. There was a lot of learning going on, and while it wasn't a rebuild in quote, where we're gutting down the roster, in a sense, it's not necessarily like you took 2 steps forward either. You know what I mean? You're implementing new schemes, you're implementing new systems, and that does take time. And I think we're seeing that take place on the field right now.
I wish I could pull it up here. If you guys are familiar with Josh DeBow and on Twitter, he does a good job of pulling out a lot of stats. Maybe he seems like he's a Raider hater, but he sometimes he does have some good stats. And I think I wish I could pull it up, but it was the Raiders stat like after the bye week and how bad we've been over the years and how we've gotten blown out or we've lost. And this is a game where Josh McDaniels and their coaching staff has to separate themselves from previous regimes. You know what I mean? There's a reason why Raider Nation and everybody's been excited about this team is because Josh McDaniels is part of that excitement and the coaching staff overall. So they need to prove, you know what I mean? Just like when we were talking about before that KC game, I'm like, hey, this is a game against a top team. I want to see what Josh McDaniels and his coaching staff what they can cook up in the lab and have for these players to put them in the best positions to succeed. Now, after a bye week, good coaches, they come out and they outcoach the team.
They
And
make
now you're
adjustments. Yep.
exactly. So you gotta believe. Now, I wasn't too impressed on what he did, first game of the season, but hopefully he's learned from his mistakes. I mean, obviously it was first game of the season. You don't know what to expect. But at the same time, like, hey, you got 5 games of film studying this opponent. You had a whole bye week to know what to do against this team. So hopefully he'll have this team ready on Sunday, and I think he will. And to be honest with you, I could see this game being a blowout, man. Do you want to get into the score?
Yeah, we can.
You wanna get a
Real
score?
quick,
You know what I mean?
I want to say, I do want to say this that I do think that as much as we talked about last week that the Kansas City Chiefs was a big measuring stick, right, to where we line up with the NFL. I think the same argument can be made in a different scheme, in a different sense in this game. You know, I think the Raiders coming off a bye week historically getting blown out when they're going into games that arguably they should be able to win coming off of a bye. Can Josh McDaniels make the changes in the Raiders organization? Good coaches do that and they find a way. Patrick Graham, can he make those adjustments to get the red zone efficiency up? Can Josh McDaniels simplify this offensive scheme and get guys going? Can they put a game out for 4 quarters? That's what good head coaches do. And I think that if Josh McDaniels can come out here and really make a statement game to say, hey, look, we can put away these teams that we're supposed to put away, I think that the Raiders might have an opportunity to really go on a serious run here. Now, if they come out here and they struggle against the Texans and the Raiders look like the same old Raiders under Josh McDaniels, one half of football getting played by the offense, one half getting played by the defense, no adjustments being made, specifically in the red zone, then I think that there's going to be some cause for concern, and I think that Mark Davis is going to have to really assess things moving forward. Not to say that Josh McDaniels is going to lose his job and everything, but I do think that everybody is held accountable at that point, especially if you go drop a L to the Houston Texans. But yeah, let's get into the score predictions.
Okay, you want to start? You want to
First and
start off?
foremost, let's get to keys to victory, and then we'll get to let's do keys to victory, and then we'll get into the final prediction.
Okay. They gotta have an early start. They gotta score fast, get ahead fast, and take them out early. This is not a good team, like I said, but you don't want to keep them hanging around. So I feel like that's a fast start is key. Obviously, Josh Jacobs, continue that trend. It's a good trend. Give him the ball. Obviously, when you start fast, give him the ball and stay on that lead. And we got to finish. We got to finish, whether it's finishing the game strong, but also finishing in the red zone. I want to see us score touchdowns. I know this is a tough team just looking at the numbers as far as their red zone defense. They're a bend but don't break defense. You can move the ball against them. I think the Raiders can. But when they're in the red zone, they are one of the best teams in the red zone as far as their defense of red zone percentage. I do want to see the Raiders overcome that. You know what I mean? They've had a full bye week. I'm sure Josh McDaniels has something up his sleeve. He's had time to reevaluate himself, the coaching staff, the players that he has on the roster. So what he needs to do, what he needs to improve on, because let's be honest, we did not expect the red zone offense, at least the red zone offense, to be this bad. You know, we thought coming in, we're hyping up Josh McDaniels. We're saying, oh man, this guy's one of the best play callers. He's one of the best play callers on third down. He's one of the best play callers in the red zone. But we haven't seen that. You know what I mean? It hasn't translated yet. So I want to see that. I want us. So those are the 3 things: start fast, Josh Jacobs, and at the end of the day, finish strong.
No, I love it, and I'm gonna take away one that I wrote down. It was run the ball and build off of your identity, and I think that you really hammered that home very well. I think really I want to see Josh McDaniels come out here with a game plan that this team is ready to come out here and execute at a very high level. If you have an extra week to come out here and prepare, those small details, those lacks of executions that we've been talking about, and really addressing this live show in particular, those lack of executions, you have no excuse this week. You had an extra week to prepare for this football team. And really, this is the best Raiders football team we should see on field up to this point. I think they should come in here at home against a team that is a lesser competition than you. This is the game where you go out here and show, all right, the Raiders are legit. The Raiders haven't thrown in the towel. They're biting down on their mouthpiece. They're in this for the full 12 rounds. They're going to go to war. We're not folding and we're not giving in at any time. Not this early. That's not the type of football team that we've established. I think number 2, you've got to stop the run. You've got to get aggressive in run defense, and you've got to force Mills to win the game off of his arm. If you do that, you set this defense up in a good situation to go out there and really maybe put this game away and get the ball back for the offense to really solidify a big win at Allegiant Stadium. And 3, beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. We've had these bye week woes where we come out and we face a team where everything is in our favor and we drop the ball. We play to the talent of another opponent, and it kills us every single time. We need to start playing to our standard and not everyone else's standard. So for me, those are the keys to victory. let's jump straight into score prediction, and then we're going to address these comments.
Okay, so score predictions. I'm gonna say 28-14. 28-14 Raiders.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to go 27-20 Raiders. I think they covered that 7-point spread that they're favored by. And I think that it's going to be a pretty run heavy football game. Which tells me I don't necessarily know that these numbers are going to hit the 30s. I know Raider Nation would love to hear that the Raiders go out here and win 35-17. And look, that could be a possibility, right? When it comes to talent, that is definitely a possibility. Just how these teams are matching up stylistically. I do expect this to be an old school smash mouth, time of possession, run the football, created identity type of football game. 27-20 Las Vegas Raiders.
I ain't mad at that. I can see that happening
Chat,
as well.
drop down your score predictions down in the chat. My dad says, if you're a long-time faithful Raider fan, this is what we do. We adapt and overcome. Facts. This is not the worst position that we've been in, and we've came back from a lot bigger feats. Like I said earlier, this is the time you put the mouthpiece in and you get ready for those championship rounds, because we're starting to enter that part of the season where it's time to play big boy football. And Josh Jacobs is coming around at the right time of the year where it's time to start playing some old school smash mouth football. So I couldn't agree more with that statement. Carlos says Raider Nation should be excited for McDaniels. Derek Carr 4.
Yeah, he did say that in a recent podcast with his nephew. I think it was like, was it on Harvester Sports or something like that?
Yeah, it's his nephews.
Yeah.
Raiders 805 says scoring 29 points should put away most teams if you have a good defense, especially this year.
Go ahead.
I think especially this year, right, with how the league is.
Yeah, because we were talking about earlier how like the scoring is down in general in the NFL. I mean, like just to put it in perspective, we're number 6 in the league. Just to let y'all know, we're number 6 scoring offense in the league with 25 points per game, which is crazy, because any other league, any other time, that wouldn't even be in the top 10 at all. But that has something to do with the way defenses are playing this year. There's a lot of too high safety looks. Teams are forcing their opponents to run the ball, short passing games. So if you can do that at a high level, like run the ball and short passing, then the scoring is going to be up. But I think that the way a lot of these quarterbacks, like even like if you think about it, like let's look at like the top scoring offenses. If you want to take a look, let's see.
I'd imagine the Bills have to be up there.
Who's up? Who's up there? The Lions. They're averaging 28 points a game.
And I seen that they're giving up like a ridiculous amount of points though, defensively. Like they got the last ranked defense in the league, but they're putting
the
points.
Lions are 28 points a game. What?
That's nice, bro. That's nice.
Shit, I'm glad we ain't playing them this year.
You think we lose?
You know what I mean? Because they're just one of those teams that, like, I don't think anybody wants to play, just because they're just like,
no, they can put up points like crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of those teams you overlook because of their record. And same with us. If you heard not Stephon Gilmore, but Stephon Diggs, that's what he was talking about the Raiders. Like the Raiders are not what their record says. Like they are better than their record, and so he knows the truth with the Raiders. I think the Raiders just need to go out and prove it. In the 6-game stretch, and I'll try to pull up that stat in a second. I'm kind of doing that in a little bit, but if you want to get back to the chat.
D-Minute says play 4 quarters. Facts. I mean, that's been something that we've been preaching, right, for the last few weeks. I mean, we've been calling for it. You could say that we've seen it in the Broncos. We've seen a little bit of it in the Kansas City game. We just not enough execution. We've been talking about that. D-Minute says, I have a feeling that we're going to see a whole different team Sunday. Hey, look, I hope you're right. Daniel Kim says that they need to come out with urgency and big energy. That is big facts. That we need to see a team that wants to play and loves the game of football and is really ready to go out there and lay it all on the line. Because you go 1-5 and you're talking about potentially losing a locker room.
Facts, 100%. Like, and that's one of those. It's a tricky situation because now, like, this is where you got to be a really good coach. You know what I mean? You got to be a good motivator. You got to be able to get. And I remember, like, was it a couple weeks ago after the win against the Broncos. I remember you were telling me you were watching the locker room speech by McDaniels,
Mhm.
and you just felt like it didn't grab your attention. Like, and I don't think that's his forte though. I don't think that's him.
I don't
You
think
know what I
so
mean?
either, but coming into a hiring where you're already being questioned about your leadership abilities, and then you come off a big win when you dropped 3 in a row, and to see that locker room like quiet, like I could hear the players whispering in the back. That's how quiet it was when Josh McDaniels walked in. Now that could be respect, or it could also be do these guys are these guys fully this is a new regime change, and they were used to the John Gruden era. A lot of those guys, a lot of the guys that were in love with Rich Bisaccia, and I think that they're in that feeling out process as well of what is Josh McDaniels, what does his leadership look like,
Mhm.
and it's a feeling out process between him and the locker room. So that's the kind of vibe I got from it. I do think that the players really do respect Josh McDaniels. I just think it's a different type of respect than what a John Gruden harbored.
Just based off like his his background, his resume, where he came from, the fact that he was on part of Super Bowl winning coaching staffs, the fact that he was literally coaching the offense, like it's documented, like
The fact that the dude's got 6 rings on his finger,
exactly,
you
and
know?
he's had success. He has success as a coach in this league, as far as at least as an assistant coach. But he's coached up different quarterbacks. So he has things where you could make an argument for him being a good coach. But that being said, like we still need to see it until we start seeing until we start winning games. Those whispers are going to get louder and louder, and then those whispers are going to be like, "Hey, this guy needs to go. He's on a hot seat." You know what I mean? I don't personally think he's on a hot seat just because at the end of the day, like, he needs more than 1 year to prove himself as a coach.
No,
Just
no, I
the bottom
agree,
line.
and I think honestly, I think that's a perfect segue to kind of wrap things up. This is a pretty unique week in a matchup against the Texans where it's pretty cut and dry. I think the Raiders have to go out there and win this football game. And there's no flashiness, there's no deep discussions that have to be made. I think the Raiders have to go out here and by any means go out there and find a way to collect this victory against the Houston Texans. So Farrell, we are going to be doing a live show Friday night, Saturday night. We're going to keep you guys updated on official lockdown day. We're shooting for Friday night, right?
Yeah, I think Friday should work out, but, like I said, we'll keep you guys posted. We'll leave messages on YouTube, Instagram, all the social medias, so just be on the lookout on that. But yeah, man, it's always fun talking football, Raider Nation, man. This is just one of those games, you know what I mean? Like, you it's not a game that you get overly excited about. I'm just more excited to watch the Raiders, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
honestly this week I have a more calming aspect because I feel like the Raiders are actually going to go out here and show the execution that we've been looking for. And I think this week is what the expectation was supposed to be.
Mhm.
So I've kind of got this like calm demeanor that I think the Raiders are going to go out here and handle business on Sunday. And I think that we're going to see a form of the Raiders that hopefully we can move forward and stack this brick by brick. And hey, that might not be a bad show name either. Brick by brick with Raider Ray and
Brick by
Farrell.
brick.
But
Daniel Kim, you wanna get to Dan Kim's comment?
yeah, yeah,
He says, "I think McDaniels is more steady and even keel. It takes that to keep guys from getting too up and down. He has that coach talk. You see him fire. I mean, he comes from a coaching family. Like his father was a coach. You know what I mean? He's been a coach damn near his whole life. I mean, he's played football. Surprisingly, I didn't know he played football, but him and Dave Z were football teammates in college, which is crazy. They're roommates and everything. So, but but yeah, man. Hey, man, it's at this point, man. It's just about like the Raiders going out on Sunday and proving it to us, and they are, man. It's gonna be fun. I think, like I said, I'm not really excited to play the Texans. Is this more? I'm gonna be excited to see the Raiders play. I'm not gonna lie. Like bye weeks are always tough, just because you want to watch your team play. But I think on Sunday we're gonna see the Raiders play. They're gonna put on a show, in my opinion. I know you said it's gonna be a tough game. It's possible, but hey, if they do what they need to do, I think they could easily take care of take care of the Texans at home and begin this stretch, man. This important stretch.
Well, Raider Nation, with that being said, man, thank you guys for pulling up tonight with us and discussing the preview show against the Houston Texans. Stay tuned. We're going to keep you guys up to date on the live show later this week. So everybody that missed out and is catching the replay and hearing me now, you are going to be able to catch up with us on Friday evening. And stay tuned because it's going to be an open dialogue. We're going to have some fun conversation. It's going to be a different format than what this show is. So come enjoy yourself. And we're just going to chop up everything, man. It's not just going to be primarily silver and black talk. We're going to be addressing a lot of stuff. So Raider Nation, I think it's going to be a show that you guys really like. On the way out, smash that like button. Smash the subscribe button for Pharaoh NFL. We do joint shows. So the show next week will be on Friday, actually, will be on Pharaoh's channel. So make sure that you're subscribed to Pharaoh so you guys don't miss it. And make sure that you hit the bell notification icon so you know when we go live. So Raider Nation, as always, man, much love.
One more thing too. I don't, not to cut you off. I know you on a roll, but and salute to all our mods. We appreciate you. Daniel Kim, he's officially a mod. I know D Menace became a mod
Yep.
the other day, but we also want you guys to help us out as well. You know what I mean? Like send some friendly messages in the chat to tell to like the video. You know, sometimes people forget. So we appreciate you guys just, first of all, coming through and supporting our show, but at the same time, like also let everybody know in the chat, to like the video, post our links. And if you guys see anything weird or anything like that, you guys know what to do. You know what I mean? But if it's a difference of opinion, then just let it go. You know what I mean? We're not afraid to disagree on anything. So if it's just that, don't try to don't try to overdo that, and don't try to block anybody because of that. But yeah, man, I appreciate all our mods, man. I appreciate everybody, man. And back to you, Ray, man.
Yeah, and they did a phenomenal job tonight, man. D Menace, Daniel, you guys were absolutely on it tonight, killing it. It doesn't go unnoticed. I was paying attention to it in the chat, so you guys killed it tonight. So shout out to Daniel Kim, D
Yeah,
Menace,
facts.
and all the moderators. So Raider Nation, man, much love. Let's go out here and get a win. Tune in on Friday. We'll be seeing you again this week. So as always, Raider Nation, just win, baby.
Peace.